Hey, what's up, Canada and beyond? Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, grannies and gators, friends, family, patriots, prisoners, and hostages. I don't think I left anybody out. Oh, guys, uh, I gotta tell you guys a little bit here. Sometimes I kind of feel sorry for you guys. Uh, uh, the best way to describe it, I guess, is like the show Forrest Gump. Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. Well, that's kind of what it's like with Wayne. Years ago, I was told that I wear my heart on my sleeve, and at the time I didn't really understand what that meant, but I do now. And you never know what you're gonna get with me. I'm as human as everybody else out there, and I have good days and I have bad days, and it's really hard for me to come on here and be the same smiling, consistent guy every single day. That's just never going to happen. You never know what you're going to get. Hell, I don't even know what I'm going to be like most days. Today is one of those days. A little bit triggered, a little bit cranky, a little bit grouchy old man. There isn't enough coffee for me to get today. For maybe if I chewed on an electric cable, it might be a little bit more upbeat. But today, some things are kind of getting me down a little bit, and part of it is it's a problem of my own creation, I guess. I talk about so many different things on this platform, and not everybody always gets what I'm saying in the moment. So when I have some of those days where people misconstrue or completely miss the point, whatever the case might be, and then they come back at me lashing out. Sometimes I find that a little bit tough to take, especially when a message starts off with, "Oh, Wayne, I've lost all respect for you, blah, 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 blah." And I listen to their argument or I read their argument, and it is absolutely nothing that I said. It's completely opposite of what I've said or completely taken out of context. There's campaigns against me and my platform because I talk to people that they maybe wouldn't. And or honestly, truthfully, in the real world, I probably wouldn't talk to half of the people that I talk to, but I do because it's important, I think, to get differing opinions, and I try to sort of the best of them, and but today it's kind of seems to be a pattern this week where people I've never even heard of are making allegations against me. People that I've given opportunity and time to making false allegations about me, or saying that I'm slandering or trashing somebody when I absolutely was not. When I and so today has got me a little bit triggered, so I have no idea what y'all are going to get here tonight. So it's as much a mystery to you guys as it is to me. What's going to happen? Some of the stuff we're going to cover tonight, probably not new news to some of you, but we're going to dig into some of it anyways. And as always, guys, start the show off with just informing everybody that Substack is kind of the one of the headquarters of what we try to do here. The censorship and deplatforming is getting worse and worse and worse. And so Substack is one of those platforms. Between that and whatsupcanada.org, those are the places that you can consistently at least stay plugged in to get to with the community. And always, of course, guys, it's always free. There is an option to support through Substack. We'll talk a little bit about that a little bit later on as well. But yeah, the best way to find Substack and everything that we do, you can watch everything, every show on whatsupcanada.org. You can watch it right there, but you don't get the receipts per se. You don't get all of the links and the documents and the files and those kinds of things. But that's where you can get plugged in on Substack for all of that. So I'm gonna kind of start tonight's show with the age old question, and I want to throw it out there for you guys a little bit and ask you guys, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Right? The argument or the discussion as old as time immemorial. So I want to hear guys' thoughts out there. Throw it in a comment wherever you're tuning in from. We are still surprisingly streaming on Facebook, or it's telling me that we're streaming on Facebook, but I get messages from people. They're not getting notified. They don't know. Um, Mouth Leo says the egg. Good comment. We'll apply that same principle and argument here to another conversation in just a second. Some of the things that we've been working on, or I've been working on behind the scenes, are starting to come together. We're having another meeting. We're going to be talking about a 24-hour truth conference for freedom that's going to be, or for free speech. It's going to be circumventing the globe. People from all around the planet. Some of the other great truth seekers and folks that stick their neck out. Yeah, Moth. Some I do tell them the old GFY, but this has been, and I guess part of it is too. There's everybody's got a world of shit going on, and sometimes they don't necessarily hear things as they get intended or as they're intended. And I am what I am. I'm not a professional at this. I'm just one of you guys that decided to pick up cameras and start doing something within my skill sets. So this is kind of where we're at. So we're going to start tonight with the age-old question, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Because I asked a question earlier today after following a statement that says, in my mind, my question is, if they don't start sending some of these confirmed terrorists home soon, they'll start, or will they start arresting people for inciting violence against them? Who will be the criminal then? Because this is the trap. This is the trap that they're setting for us. They've flooded our country with people that have no investment in our country or our culture, right? Thanks, Moth. The question of the year, right? This is what they're setting Canadians up for, and we're going to talk quite a bit about this here tonight. So this is going to trigger some people, and I'm finding myself, when it comes to this question of the Palestinian protests here in Canada, I think just calling them protests is inaccurate, and it's something that we're going to have to start asking serious questions about, really soon. If you've been following the events over the last couple of days, I agree with you, Leonard. It is state-sponsored terrorism at this point, and we're gonna listen to some of our statesmen, statespeople kind, on their stances on what I can only deduce is does not belong here in Canada, and I'm creating some provocative conversation out there with taking my stance on this is support the country you live in or go live in the country you support. Bottom line, and it's got we've got in my mind we've got to make this a black and white resolve in our stance. So when I look at what they're doing today, and yesterday, they've been vandalizing McGill University. They've been literally terrorizing innocent, Jewish people that have no effect or impact on their beefs. They are literally calling for the death of Canada, and that means Canadians. If you do not convert to their beliefs, that is what their intent is, and believe them when they say it, right? So this is the situation that we find ourselves in here in Canada, where these people and their angry ideology is taking over our streets. They are committing crimes against people, left, right, and center, nationwide. It's not just happening in Toronto or Ottawa, it's happening in Vancouver and in Calgary, and I'm sure other places in between. And I have some questions about this. And Nick Freehouse, I've got a short clip pulled up from him. If you don't know who Nick Freehouse is, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but he is absolutely a straight shooter and a veteran. And I've had some serious questions about this prepared agenda, this narrative, this uh, war of ideology and culture is in my heart of hearts, I know that it's a setup. We know that these people are intentionally using every tool at their disposal to create a quote unquote color revolution in Canada. It's the same thing the spook agencies did in every country that they've toppled and conquered so far. And now Canada and the West, as a whole, but looking at it from a Canadian perspective, we are now the targets of this agenda against us through illegitimate warfare. When we had Rich Higgins on the show here before he was taken out, um, he warned us of this. They were going to wage war on us in unrestricted methodologies, and I don't think people really grasped the magnitude of that. And how could we? We've never experienced any of this before. We've never been here before. And so we didn't really get it when Rich was giving us a warning back in 2020 there. But, it's kind of like, the same thing when Trudeau said he was going to make Canada the first post nation state. Nobody really said, huh? What are you even talking about? Right? So we've literally been living real time the warning of Yuri Bezmenov. And it's just, we hear the different identifiers of it. The Hegelian dialect, it's called. The white paper was a participatory action research PAR. We looked into that. That's the model our governments use. They rebranded the Hegelian dialect and made it policy. You can go and look that up. We covered that about a month ago. But when it comes to what we've been enduring the last year, last year specifically, and we're going to look at over the last couple of years, Trudeau's absolute support of terrorist regimes in faraway lands. Remember when Trump was president and he designated Hamas as a terrorist organization and kicked them out of America? What was Trudeau's response to that? He immediately went on Twitter and offered them $50 million. So a lot of this that we're experiencing, I'm sure, is exactly our own tax dollars at work against us. And we know the media is complicit in everything that is going on. But when it comes to this particular problem, and thanks, guys, for remembering to give this a share, give this a like, a thumbs up, a heart, whatever it is on the platform that you're watching or tuning in from. They do everything they can to make sure that this show in particular does not get to carry very far. And I watched some people on YouTube talking about this today, and I can't help but agree. If you are a successful YouTuber, you're probably controlled opposition because you're actually avoiding the subjects that this show covers every single day. And this is why we get censored more often than probably any other Canadian podcaster, because we do it in a responsible, thought-provoking, conversational way without being offensive. So this is the kind of platform and community that, because this is a symbiotic thing, I sort through the news so you don't have to, and you guys share with the good stuff when we get together and talk about it, right? So it absolutely matters. So I want you guys to check out this 1 minute from Nick, and we'll chew on this while we get into our Canadian uh, dignitaries.
Hamas went into the Israel that day knowing they can't beat the IDF.
They knew
They went in that day
they weren't going to win.
knowing that the IDF would come after the hostages.
They
went
did.
in that day knowing that they were going to use their own civilians on top of legitimate military targets in an effort to increase civilian casualties, their civilian casualties.
Yep.
And yet they knew that Western media and academia would back their play and make a false moral equivalency argument. The question that you got to start asking yourself, if you're serious about this, how did they know they could trust left-wing academia and media to back their play? How did they know? Because that's exactly what took place. Hamas went into the Israel that...
Now, tell me, Mouth of the South, if this is not maybe the question of the year, how did they know? How did they know when they pulled this thing that they're celebrating now, that they're having fireworks for in celebration, this attack on Israel? I'm not saying anything was perfect there before, but this particular event and the repercussions has been like a playbook, and they knew that our Western media and academia, the Trudeauites, the CBC, the colleges, the universities, how did they know? How did they know the BLMs, the alphabet soups? How did they know all of these people would back their play if they weren't all in it together? That wasn't just a gamble. That was a set play. So what we're seeing here right now in Canada is my firm belief is all of the money that this liberal regime has funneled into these terroristic organizations, have provided the infrastructure for and the environment for, have been absolutely set up to attempt to conquer our nation, and we have to absolutely believe them at their word that that is what they're here for. It's not just coincidence that Trudeau said no to the white South African farmers that were getting butchered and still are. They're not allowed to come to Canada. But yet, you know what is and allowed to come to Canada. So I got a second time this month so far, I think a CBC clip, or pardon me, a global news clip that I'm going to play for everybody. And we'll chew on this as we think about how did they know? How did they know?
Yesterday, on October 7th, while burning the Maple Leaf, Sami Doon terrorist sympathizers openly called for death to Canada, death to the United States, and death to Israel. After 9 years of this prime minister, sadly calls for death to Canada, and our allies have now been normalized. Sami Doon operates as an arm of a listed terrorist organization in Canada. Will the prime minister protect Jewish Canadians from homegrown extremism and list Sami Doon as a terrorist organization?
So I want to bring up one significant point here. This argument in our parliament is on behalf of the terrorist organization and the Jewish people. They're arguing to protect the Jewish people. What about the rest of us? What about the rest of us? Nobody is safe from this if you don't comply, if you don't convert. These meat muppets are grandstanding and playing virtue signaling theater based on the basically where World War II ended off. These people that they're protecting, these terrorist organizations, were a part of the reason why we went to war in World War II. They took part in the attacks on the genocide of World War II. And it wasn't limited to just Jews. So why are these guys only fighting for Jews? Well, this is a question we seriously have to ask.
If there's one thing today we will be able to agree is that we both condemn what happened yesterday on the streets of Vancouver talking about. And that's why we will always condemn any form of anti-Semitism. I'm convinced that everybody in this house will condemn any form of anti-Semitism.
Anti-Semitism. How about anti-Canadianism? How about anti-Christian? How about anti-anything that isn't their demand?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, in March of this year, Sammy Doon paraded through my riding to intimidate our Jewish community.
The entire community. Do you think anybody felt safe stepping outside Don Stewart?
Now we see videos of Sammy Doon members in our streets calling for the death of Canada. Long live October 7th, and calling the Hamas terrorists their heroes while they burn the Canadian flag. This government has done nothing to put a stop to these pro-genocide, anti-Semitic, anti-Canadian mobs who threaten our Jewish communities nationwide. Will the Prime Minister commit to protecting our Jewish communities and label Sammy Doon a terrorist organization?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Those actions that have been taking place in our streets are wrong. We condemn them full stop. Any form of anti-Semitism is wrong. This is precisely why, Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Public Safety had already referred the listing of Sammy Doon to our national security advisors and asked for an emergency and urgent review. Mr. Speaker, we've already taken action. We know this issue isn't political, and it's a shame that conservatives only stand up when they think it suits their political advantage.
If they took action, they would have listed them already. So if burning a Canadian flag, if calling for the death of Canadians, if fomenting hate in this country, and most of all being a front for an already listed terrorist organization is not enough to put them on the list, then what the hell is it going to take for them to ban them?
Mr. Speaker, when it comes to an issue as serious as this, we are not going to play politics with Canadian safety. But when it comes to listing of terrorist entities, the members opposite know full well it is not a political decision. It is based on the national security services of the country, but it's precisely why the minister had already sent it for an urgent review, understanding that this hate is unacceptable in Canada.
It's unacceptable in Canada, yet that's exactly what you continue to import. The people that are, it's funny how they sit there both and say, well, tell each other, oh, they both condemn it. But the one side keeps doing it, keeps creating it, keeps manifesting it, and sits there and lies in the house, basically on that. And I get a real special treat for y'all if you haven't had enough of those psychos. We got a Melanie Jolie, Foreign Affairs Barbie, and it's my firm belief that she is a terrorist sympathizer and there is blood on her hands.
Sorry, you suggested you're pandering to in support of your leadership campaign. What do you make of that?
Well, first of all, today
And that's so we're going to touch on that. We're going to hear from Pierre. We're going to give him a chance to defend himself on that. But he was silenced in the House today and ultimately removed from the House for asking her if she would retract her stance of being a terrorist sympathizer. So Pierre is calling her a terrorist sympathizer, and I want you guys to tell me what you think.
It's an important day. It's a day where we commemorate all those who were killed, who were injured, who were abused, who were taken hostage. And it's a day where basically we also mourn the fact that there were 8 Canadian citizens killed. This morning, what did I do? I was in contact with Iris Weinstein, who's Judy's Weinstein daughter, who's still asking for the remains of her mom to go back, and that way she can, be able to grieve. I was in contact with Alexandre Luc's father. I was in contact with Vivian Silver's son. That's what you do when you hold a position of power in these difficult times.
She doesn't hold a position of serving the people. She holds a position of significant power. And she's kissing butts to these people while she's lying to the rest of Canadians.
You support people. You show moral leadership. You don't freaking gaslight people. Not on a day that is so important for the country. And clearly that's what Pierre Poilievre was doing today. And clearly what he was saying, it was trying to play petty politics on the backs of victims. And so that's why not only should he apologize for what he did, but clearly the guy's unfit to become prime minister because Canadians deserve way better.
What do you all think of that? If that isn't the hubris of the decade, she is the queen of gaslighting. Absolutely, everything she said there to the camera and the journalists was an absolute. Yeah, I mean, maybe she did get in contact with those people. What she should have been getting in contact with is the people in Palestine and Israel and working on stopping the conflict, not kissing butt to some victims, lying to them and lying to the rest of Canadians, and looking down her nose from her position of extreme power. I find her existence in our system an offense. I just disgusting to me. Susie, I cannot share that one. So we're going to hear from Pierre. This is a little bit of a longer clip than I usually play, but I don't have to rush away tonight so early. So we'll chew on maybe a little bit more tonight.
Is paralyzed today, again, I think for the 7th day, after Justin Trudeau refused the Speaker's order to hand over evidence to the police in a $400 million scandal. A scandal involving 186 conflicts of interest, wherein Liberal appointees gave money, Canadian tax dollars, to their own companies. There must be something really damaging in all these documents Trudeau is covering up. For him to shut down the House's businesses for 7 days in order to prevent the police from getting their hands on it. It's just another reminder that after 9 years of Justin Trudeau, everything is broken. He's not worth the crime, the cost, and the corruption. Housing costs have doubled. The cost of food has driven 2 million people to the food bank. Our economy is the fastest shrinking in the G7. Right now, the average American makes 50% more than the average Canadian, the worst gap between our two countries in Canadian history. Food price inflation has been 36% higher in Canada than in the US, something that the food professor, Sylvain Charlebois, attributes directly to the carbon tax, which, and they're the worst, the news gets even worse. Trudeau wants to quadruple to 61 cents a litre, which will grind our economy to a halt. Factories won't get their parts, grocery stores won't get their food, workers won't get their paychecks. It will be like a nuclear winter for our economy if this quadrupling carbon tax goes ahead.
1 in 20 businesses, small businesses closed in the month of June. That's 5%. That's only going to, for every percent that he can add, piles on the tax, you can add at least probably 5% of businesses closing. This is catastrophic. And I, I'm not telling anybody what to do, but I do know that this guy that is the tyrant of the century in the Western Hemisphere has got to go.
And that's why common sense conservatives will axe the tax, build the homes, fix the
I know Carly. So Carmen, hear from Carly. He's on board with the Ukraine money. We gotta. That's a whole other fight. Here's the thing. He's not going to address any point that he is signed on to, or his party is signed on to. So the more the more he picks things, we know he's hiding other things. And this is kind of where, in the moment, we've got to pat the conservative backs like good little children and say, okay, good point, and give them things that the rest of Canadians can chew on too. So right now this is why he's doing what he's doing. The Ukraine thing and so many others that he's absolutely avoiding. It's he's got the fox's nose in the political winds, and he's going to stay away from anything that smells like smoke right now. So he's taking advantage of the implosion of the Liberal Party, just like the rest of us are. Right? The Liberal Party is giving us plenty to fight on. Let's win a couple of those right now.
Budget and stop the crime after the carbon tax election. But worse than anything else is what we see in our streets today. What has happened to our country? The division, the violence, the hate, the danger, the anti-Semitism that we've never seen before in this country. Now, it's easy to blame the firebombing of synagogues, the hateful genocidal protests, protest chants in front of Jewish businesses, homes, and hospitals as simply a reaction to a conflict in the Middle East. It doesn't make sense. First, hate crime was up over 100% before October 7th. And second, this is not the first time there's been a conflict in the Middle East. There was the war of 1967.
I'm going to pull up a couple of comments here, guys. You know, everybody here knows, if anybody that's been on this channel more than once knows that we know that who Pierre is, that yes, he's already stated he's not taking us out of the Paris Accords, any of those things. They're all made from the same cloth. But I ask you, what is the fastest way to deal with this invasion problem? If it isn't helping this fight in the here and now on the merits of the fight, not the politician or the people, we've got a problem. And we can go back to squabbling about all of the other things if we survive, right? And that's kind of what I want people to understand here. Yeah, and they're all corrupt. They're all corrupt. But in the here and now, he's the only one that has the influence that of the accepted universe. That when he's talking the same talk we're talking, we aren't the batshit crazy tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theorists. We are forcing him to legitimize our discussion. That's the point I want you guys to make. We know what he is, and we can direct him when enough of us are armed to the teeth with the correct information. Right? This is the court of public opinion. So the more we get educated, we force him to have to come out and say things like he's saying here right now. So take away everything else and just listen to his statement, because if there's, who do you want to listen to, this guy or the meat muppets that we just listened to? It's important right now to pick our fights and pick the ones that we can win. And I'm not saying forget about the rest by any means. They'll have their day too. Every fight will have its day. Right now, this is one that we have some traction on, and it's not just here in Canada. And this guy is going to pay attention to us, at least over the short term.
And then there was the Yom Kippur War in '73. There were 2 intifadas. There was the war against Hezbollah in 2006.
He's making important points that legitimize our argument.
Hamas in 2014. We never saw that violence spill onto our streets. We didn't see people bring those hatreds into Canada. But after 9 years of Trudeau's radical ideology, his deliberate attempts to divide people into groups, his reckless destruction of our border security, letting in 2 ISIS terrorists, one apparently videotaped mutilating a human body on a crucifix and subsequently making that person a citizen. These kinds of reckless policies and the actions of this government, the refusal to condemn these remarks. Just yesterday, the Minister of Foreign Affairs did something unbelievable on the floor of the House of Commons. I read the genocidal comments that have been made by these radical mobs. And I said, would you just condemn it? From the river to the sea. She wouldn't condemn that. Israel will soon be gone. She wouldn't condemn that. There's only one solution, intifada, revolution. She wouldn't condemn that. She wouldn't even affirm Israel's right to retaliate against other countries attacking it. She should apologize. A foreign affairs minister in Canada should find it very easy to condemn those kinds of remarks, but she didn't because she's pandering politically, which is what Justin Trudeau has been doing for the last 9 years. Today, we see that on our streets, the organization Samadoun, which is a front for the PFLP, has been fomenting these violent and horrific protests and mob actions. This organization is a front for an already banned terrorist group, and it is an offense under Section 83.5 of the Criminal Code, as enacted by the Anti-Terrorism Act, to knowingly act on behalf of, at the direction of, or in association with a terrorist entity. Specifically, Samadoun's founder, Khalid Barakat, has been described by the Israeli government as a high-ranking member of the PFLP. The PFLP has been placed on the list of banned Canadian terrorist entities for 20 years. In 2021, the Israeli Ministry of National Defense designated Samadoun as an organization that is a subsidiary of the PFLP. Germany banned the Samadoun, saying that it served as an international network which disseminates anti-Israel and anti-Jewish propaganda and supported and glorified various foreign terrorist organizations, including Hamas. Samadoun's leadership was deported from Germany, refused entry into the EU in 2022, and both times they were returned and, of course, welcomed to Canada. In 2019, PayPal, DonorBox, and Plaid shut out online donations to Samadoun due to its alleged links to the PFLP, following an incident in June where the PFLP issued an official statement of gratitude.
So now this is why I pulled this clip, because he's literally reading accurate data. This is how we arm ourselves, in this particular fight. And I do think that this is our opportunity to do something significant. We have, if we take a look at our top 5 existential threats, yeah, absolutely. Number 1 is Justin Trudeau, but it's not so much the man himself. Change the man, it changes nothing, right? So it's the work that he has gotten done so far. So this leads us to Bill C-293 and some of these other things where by default, the harder we push back on these things, this is why Trudeau and the Liberals are in so much trouble. So we are becoming so much far more effective in this battle. And here's what will happen if we put our laser focus and energy on the things that we can control, then some of the rest of it will come down and topple in due course, because it has no other way to go, right? So this is why, I think that we have got some opportunities here in the next couple months, perhaps, to push some of these cracks in the dams into giant gushing leaks. And this is one.
For its support of its prisoners. And Samadoun's Canadian leader, Charlotte Cates, has traveled to Iran and appeared on state TV, where she described Hamas's actions of October 7th as brave and heroic. Her organization has gone on to make numerous glorifications of October the 7th, specifically saying, this was what she said, her group said yesterday, long live October 7th. October 7th, the inception of the Al-Aqsa flood, the day that made clear
we take them down with 1,000 cuts.
Resistance can and will liberate Palestine, and that the entire region will be free of Zionism and imperialism. The great flood toward liberation. On October 7th, 2023, Mohammed Deif, commander of the Al-Qassam brigades and the Palestinian resistance, said, "Today, the people reclaim their revolution, correct their path, and return to the march and return to the march of return." And finally, yesterday, the organization chanted in our streets, in Canadian streets, "Death to Canada, death to the United States, and death to Israel."
So, if you're a Canadian, you are being named as an open target.
So this is a terrorist organization. Common sense conservatives are calling for the government under Section 83.03 of the Criminal Code to ban Samadoun now. And let's bring home safety and security and
That's
peace
cheesy.
to our streets. Let's unify our people. Let's end the crime by locking up the dangerous repeat offenders. Let's secure our borders. Let's keep terrorists out of our country. And let's stand up for what's right once again. Stand with our allies against terrorism and for decency.
Now, yeah, I agree, Johnny. He's pandering, but this is exactly the kind of pandering that Canadians need right now, that we can hold their feet to the fire on down the road. And this is absolutely a political target of opportunity, but he's finally saying some of the things that we've been screaming to say, and we'll keep pushing that door open further and further and further. This is a good start, especially from Pierre.
Let's bring home the country that we knew and still love. Thank you.
À propos des demandes de documents que vous avez préparées en chambre, même les gens de la GRC disent on n'en a pas besoin. Est-ce que ce serait pas le moment d'envoyer tout ça à PROC?
C'est pas clair ce que vous dites. Moi, je crois que si
We're a bilingual show tonight.
Ils peuvent l'ignorer. On dit que simplement les policiers devraient les avoir, et c'est la GRC qui peut, à ce moment, décider si oui ou non ils vont utiliser ces documents-là. Mais il n'y a aucune raison pour laquelle le gouvernement ne fournira pas les documents à la GRC dans une enquête. Si Justin Trudeau n'a rien à cacher dans cet scandale de 400 millions de dollars, où la vérificatrice générale a trouvé 184 incidents de conflit d'intérêts. Donc, le gouvernement devrait simplement fournir les documents.
Quelle est votre position sur le discours haineux? Vous savez que certains propos que vous avez dit peut-être bénéficient de l'exception religieuse dans le discours haineux. Le Bloc québécois a fait un projet de loi là, pour enlever ça, pour que des discours antisémites ne pourraient pas tomber dans l'exception religieuse de la loi du code criminel.
Notre lecture dit que les propos haineux qui font appel à la violence n'ont pas accès à l'exception dont vous parlez. Donc, ma lecture, je ne suis pas évidemment un avocat, mais ma lecture, c'est que les policiers devraient arrêter ceux et celles qui font appel à la violence, même si ces personnes-là utilisent la religion comme étant leur défense. Et à ce que je comprenne, la loi actuelle permet aux policiers de la faire. Donc, c'est ça que je dis. Les policiers et les couronnes provinciaux devraient mettre des allégations, porter des allégations formelles.
So yesterday you said that you endorse Israel proactively defending itself by hitting Iran's nuclear sites, which is something that President Joe Biden does not endorse. Do you not feel like this could lead to a likelihood of an all-out conventional war between Iran and Israel? And do you not agree with Joe Biden and his assessment?
I think the idea of allowing a genocidal, theocratic, unstable dictatorship that is desperate to avoid being overthrown by its own people to develop nuclear weapons is about the most dangerous and irresponsible thing that the world could ever allow. And if Israel were to stop that genocidal, theocratic, unstable government from acquiring nuclear weapons, it would be a gift by the Jewish state to humanity.
Now, this, I'm going to add my 2 bits in on this. Iran has been rumored to be close to having nuclear capabilities. It's not like they have giant nuclear powered substations and those kinds of things. So this is basically Israel is saying they want to make a preemptive strike to take out their nuclear capabilities. But here's the problem that I have with all of this. The whole nuclear agenda, the whole Iran construct, the whole Middle East construct is all a giant CIA operation, all done through what is called the Safari Club. If you don't know what that is, look it up. This is Black Ops 101, manufacturing these conflicts on behalf of the military-industrial complex. This is all as giant a setup there as Ukraine was. The difference is in the danger in this conflict there is that we lose if we escalate this to that level of conflict on a static, conflict. Simply because nobody's taking into account that Russia and China are backing the rest of these Middle Eastern countries. By that I mean Iran, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Turkey. Turkey's a big one there. Italy doesn't want to fight with Russia. So this is the American military war dogs that are trying to foment this, and Pierre is going to do what all Meat Muppet suits are going to do and take the hardline stance, because that is the regular scheduled programming. So this is kind of, that's that's a whole other sideways conversation. At this point, I want every involvement that Canada has in all of this over and done with. It's time for some isolationism on behalf of some of our Western countries. And if these guys want to pick fights with each other, let them. It's not our fight. We've got to stop sticking our nose into this. And this is a problem that I have with Pierre. And it's interesting that he's giving us so many opportunities to speak well of the things he is saying, but he is also opening himself up to criticism. And so we have to be specific in our arguments on what we will or will not support. And I do not support escalation in that capacity. Let the people that want to fight go back there and fight. Get them out of our freaking country. Stop there, Pierre.
Today, Chrystia Freeland said that she'd be willing to work with the Conservatives to pass any legislation referencing back during COVID where the two parties work together. Are there any priorities which you actually share with the Liberals where you could see the two parties working together to pass something?
What do you think? You seen anything good they're doing lately? By the way, I was very rude. I have an incredible team here. I want to point them out here. We have Don Stewart, who's been fighting against the crime, fighting to defend the Jewish community against anti-Semitism, a great businessman who understands how we can fix the budget. We have Raquel Dancho, who has been fighting for safe streets as our lead on matters of public safety, and a great voice for Manitoba. We have our great heroine and deputy leader, Melissa Lanceman, who, in addition to doing a terrific job in all of her roles, she helped this guy put his kippah on properly so it didn't fall off yesterday. So thank you for that. And she is leading the charge on literally every single file. And then we have...
that was kind of an insult, Pierre. I'm not going to lie.
Of course, Marty Morantz, a member of Parliament and Associate Finance Shadow Minister, who was the very first. I know all of you have been giving me credit for pointing out inflation would follow money printing. It was actually Marty Morantz. So please give Marty a round of applause, everybody. Well, you're asking me on, look, what is their
100%
policy?
agree,
It's
old
to-
saucy.
they
That's an
double the
insult.
debt, they double housing costs.
He needs to
They've
be
given us the
corrected
worst
on that.
inflation in 40 years. They would have to reverse. They have to do exactly the opposite of everything they've done to fix all the problems that they've caused. What I'm saying is, let's axe the carbon tax to bring down gas, heat, and groceries rather than quadrupling the tax to 61 cents a liter. I would work with her on axing the carbon tax. I would allow her to take my private member's bill that will build the homes by removing bureaucracy to get building. I would allow the government to take my entire plan to cap government spending with a dollar for dollar law to bring down the deficit, inflation, and interest rates. And I would allow them to take my plan to stop the crime with jail, not bail, stronger borders, and not banning hunting rifles, and treatment rather than unsafe supply, so we can bring our loved ones home drug-free. So take those.
Like I said earlier, guys, he's gonna snap back to exactly the same old talking points. That's what politicians do. They're not, their noses are in the wind. If they smell smoke, they're going the other way. So he's taking big steps for compared to most of the others out there. So this is very interesting and why we're having a discussion on it. There's some other points that have come up in the comments that I'm going to pull up in just a second.
No, but I'm just finishing the question. If you take those ideas, axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime, to Chrystia Freeland, let me know it.
Get us out of the United Nations and get us out of foreign conflicts. Let's stop funding the military-industrial complex.
She said.
Can't do any of that until this current debate is dispensed with. So why not just agree to send it to the committee like the speaker has suggested? The RCMP says it already has some of these documents. Why continue to buy the government more time with keeping the House of Commons in stasis? You can't bring up your confidence motions.
It's been months now since the Auditor General revealed a $400 million spending scandal involving 186 instances of conflict of interest where Liberal appointees gave tax dollars to their own companies. $400 million is a lot of money.
At least he's fighting about something.
Can't afford groceries, the seniors who can't afford rent. We're not just going to let $400 million of corruption be swept under the rug so Justin Trudeau can get on with his day. So we say, let's end this now. Let's get Parliament back to work by handing over the documents to the police so we can bring them back.
So, a lot to digest there. And look, guys, I'm not going to argue with any of you guys when you guys know, same bullpucky. He's all WEF. They all got to go. The career politician. Every one of these clowns has guts to go. But here's the challenge, guys. Is I don't want a violent revolution. So until something changes, we got to fight the fight with every available opportunity and tool that we have, or we can get our sticky little hands on. So right now, it's the government, and we have to do everything that we can. Stephen, most of the people that I know that have pew-pews have lost them in the lakes, and I kind of understand that full well. So there's one other and that's absolutely part of what is kind of the ripple effect of what this video started out as. We need to defend Canadians first. And then we're getting close to the comment that I saw. This one here, Wendy. Thank you. Israel and in the Middle East in general do matter. Their leadership is as bad as Canada. Full well understand. Show me one Western nation that does not have the same problem going on in the same country. But the problem is, we're not going to fix Israel and Palestine. We're not going to fix any of these other countries. The only country that we can even maybe do something about is our own. And that same responsibility has to be taken on by every other country. Their people have to fix their countries. We can't fix their countries for them. And I promise you, we are not the only country having these rising swells of nationalism and exactly that, the isolationism. 17 more countries have basically declared they're going to be using every means at their disposal to remigrate the migration problems that they have had, right? So I don't want to go to jail for incitement of a revolution. No, a renaissance, absolutely. And to me, a renaissance is taking this whole giant cabal down one brick at a time, taking the opportunities that we have when they present themselves and making the most of them when they appear. When the Overton window is open, that is when we do everything that we can. And that means organizing and being active on many different issues and fights and battles where we can, where we got them. So I got a clip here from Clinton Jaws that we know what they are. So until we can clean them up one by one, we've got work to do. It's going to get worse before it gets better, but I'm optimistic. Our side is the one that's growing. Our side is the one that is forcing them to have uncomfortable conversations, and our side is kind of leading the way in the rest of the world on some of these conversations. So this is it's a time to be hopeful, not hopeless. We have opportunity. We've got more opportunity to stop all of this insanity now than we did in 2020. Think about that. How many people knew anything about where the bears shit in the buckwheat in 2020, right? The level of awareness has grown exponentially in a very short period of time in the grand scheme of things. And it's this unrealistic expectations of instant remedy, easy buttons, silver bullets. That's not going to happen. But there is tools that we can continue to chip away against all of this. And it matters. It absolutely matters. But we can't be responsible for those other countries. We can only be responsible for ours. So I think that if the best of those people's citizens have come to Canada, we should just send them all home so that they can have the best back home to fix their own damn problems and keep our politicians out of their way and let them fix their own shit. But this clip is from somebody who's surprisingly as frustrated as the rest of us.
Clinton Jaw is kind of a big deal. And no, I'm not making it up. I sat down today to watch Question Period. Pierre Poilievre's supposed to be there. He ain't there. I'm going to show you what happened. I got a clip of the House Speaker banning him. Basically, banning him from speaking. He could go to Question Period today, but they're going to pretend that he's not there. That's what he says. Yesterday during Question Period, Pierre Poilievre got up and he asked a whackload of times to the Liberals, do you condemn what the protesters are doing? Because what they're doing, it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad what they're saying. Basic question. Do you condemn it? Anybody would condemn it.
I just going to pause here for a sec before I let it carry on. This guy kind of cracks me up a little bit. Obviously, RCMP officer, very disillusioned with his government and has the guts to go on and do a podcast. And he's got kind of a unique way of talking about things. So he's kind of one of my guilty pleasures. And I sorry, your comment. Larry, good one. You cracked me up, derailed my comment, but I'm gonna see if I can get him on a show. What do you guys think about that?
I gave the Foreign Affairs Minister 2 opportunities to condemn the increasingly common and terrifying anti-Semitic chants we hear in the streets. Israel will soon be gone. There is only one solution: intifada, revolution. Twice she refused to condemn those remarks. She continues to pander to Hamas supporters in the Liberal Party as part of her leadership campaign rather than doing her job. So I'll give her another chance. This has sought to divide Canadians by saying one thing to one group and precisely the opposite to another group. And here in this House, remaining radio silent on condemning anti-Semitic chants and on supporting Israel's right to truly defend itself by retaliating against the terrorists and tyrants. Why won't she do the right thing and stand beside the Jewish people today?
But they wouldn't do it. At one point, she gets up. Don't you talk to me like that.
And I really hope that my colleague in front will apologize.
So interrupts everybody and says, well, I'm going to show you what he says. I really feel like the House Speaker is making things up. The House Speaker wanted Pierre Poilievre. The House Speaker is now punishing them. And I'm wondering, what was so bad that Pierre Poilievre even said? Watch this, guys. Also,
to mayors from my riding who, I'm sorry to interrupt the honorable member for Mesquinonge. He will have 3 minutes 40 to finish his speech, but I must interrupt him.
Indicated that during question period, the leader of the opposition had used language. In fact, it was very similar in nature and language used earlier this year by a member who accused the leader of the opposition who was asked to withdraw that comment. I therefore asked yesterday that the leader of opposition do the same, namely to withdraw his comment at the earliest opportunity. Today, time of day where the leader of the opposition normally undertakes one of his most important roles, namely leading off question period. Members will recall that when the leader of the opposition was himself the subject of unparliamentary language, to which I just referred, perfectly clear to the chair occupant, who then very rightly insisted on a withdrawal. As such, I am sure members can appreciate that I must do the same in the present circumstances.
Our parliamentary system depends on respect for the rules that members set out for themselves, and the application of which has been entrusted to the Speaker and other chair occupants, ignoring the authority of the chair, who is in charge of enforcing parliamentary rules, has a corrosive effect on our discussions. I would call on all members, and especially the leaders of the different parties represented in the House, to reflect on this. These situations only tarnish the reputation of the House and its members in the eyes of the public. This undermines the important work done by the House.
Opposition is an experienced member who is well versed in our practices and procedures. Ask questions to the ministry to ensure it is held accountable for its actions and to challenge its decisions. His role is not to make the government comfortable, quite the contrary, but his actions must also be exercised within the existing boundaries of parliamentary decorum.
Over the last few months, the member refused to heed decisions by the chair on non-parliamentary remarks during question periods on 2 occasions. In the first occasion, he was named. On the second occasion, his party had questions removed. Yesterday's events represent a third occasion.
The opposition should withdraw his comments made yesterday during question period. If he is not willing to do so, the chair will not recognize him for the remainder of today's sitting. I thank honorable members.
So that's Clinton Jaws, his channel on YouTube. So it's interesting that somebody like him, and I'm going to see if I can get him on the show. He's got an interesting take, and he's got a good sense of humor. Probably not going to. I got some real long ones lined up here. I'm going to skip this one, guys. I'll add it into the show notes. You'll find it on Substack tomorrow. What do you guys want to I think we're going to listen to some Neil Oliver. We haven't heard from Neil in a while. This is a bit of a longer clip, guys. I told you we would. Well, hopefully this audio will be better. We probably are being censored. I'd be surprised if we weren't. We'll give this a little bit of a go, and then we'll see what it's like. If it turns to crap, let me know. I'll be watching in the comments. I do know some people have had luck with resetting, but we'll see how it goes.
The attitude of the powerful towards freedom, specifically freedom of speech. It's my contention that while the actions we see are intimidating, they also crucially reveal the clumsy ineptness, the laziness of those who would rule. In the methods employed now lack even the merest hint of sophistication. Those with the will and the intention and the desire to govern are revealed by every word and deed as profoundly limited people.
And I think the dislike of and anguish over social media is just growing and growing and growing. And it's part of our
course
problem,
it is,
particularly in democracies, in terms of building consensus around any issue. It's really hard to govern today. You can't, there's no, the referees we used to have to determine what
because you're supposed to serve, not govern.
Been eviscerated to a certain degree. And people go and people self-select where they go for their news or for their information. And then you just get into a vicious cycle.
John Kerry, talking there, amongst friends, so to speak, feeling comfortable amongst his own kind. Kerry, who, if you don't know, sometime presidential candidate for the Democratic Party, more recently Joe Biden's climate czar. But in any event, a man who's been close to the center of power for decades. Now, you heard him talk there about people self-selecting sources of information like it's a bad thing. Good God, are those people hearing stuff other than what we're saying, other than the stuff we want them to think? Seems to be the implicit. He talks about how people self-selecting their information make it hard to build consensus, right? Now, by which he means how it's hard now for people like him, for people like them in the World Economic Forum and other fora like it. It's hard to get everyone to believe what the state wants them to believe. And you and me, how all these free-thinking, free-speaking people make it hard for the so-called self-appointed elite to govern. By which he means, what he means by that is the freedom to tell everyone what to do and when, without fear of any voice raised in opposition. He said,
there's a lot of discussion now about how you curb those entities in order to guarantee that you're going to have, some accountability on facts, et cetera. But look, if people go to only one source and the source they go to is sick and, has an agenda and they're putting out
like MSM,
our First Amendment stands as a major block to the ability to be able to just, hammer it out of existence. So what we need is to win the ground, win the right to govern.
He's saying this out loud to an audience in company of the sort of people that
True would be sitting there. Freeland would be going
domain, and he knows that. This is jaw-dropping stuff. They're in the company of like minds. He's calling the First Amendment a major block to getting his way. I can't hear James Madison's First Amendment often enough because it's so cleverly, it's so sensitively and knowingly worded. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. With those words ringing in your ears, let's not forget New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern at the height of the so-called pandemic, when she said,
"We will continue to be your single source of truth."
The we there being her government, single source of truth. Anything else is just rumour, if not downright lies. We, the government, will be your single source of truth. Since when? But look at what has come out of these single state sources of information. The likes of John Kerry predicting all sorts about the climate that never came to pass, unfounded claims, if not downright lies, about the so-called vaccines being safe and effective, when the officials saying as much absolutely knew the jabs would not stop transmission and wouldn't stop you getting ill. And then, the likes of, what else we had? The likes of Russiagate from Hillary Clinton, lies about Trump that she still pushes, even though they've been proven to be lies and propaganda. She still repeats it now. The scores of officials from the US intelligence community who got up on their hind legs and testified that the Hunter Biden laptop was a fake, that it was nothing but Russian propaganda. The Hunter Biden laptop was subsequently proven to have been quite the contrary. It was real, and everything on it was as had been revealed hitherto.
I've got some serious questions about what else was on Hunter Biden's laptop, like some, like uranium deals and like some Burisma Holdings deals, that Canadian company in Ukraine that Hunter Biden sat on the board of. I wonder what kind of incentives some Canadians got out of that little relationship. I'd sure like to ask somebody some questions about that.
But there at the World Economic Forum, John Kerry reveals, he's the one who has usefully this week revealed that he even proudly identifies freedom to speak as the problem. He says that the First Amendment is the major block in the way of the state being able to push a false narrative.
I think democracies are very challenged right now and have not proven they can move fast enough or big enough to deal with the challenges that we are facing. And to me, that is part of what this race, this election is all about. Will we break the fever in the United States?
Now, don't forget that John Kerry served in the Vietnam War briefly and came back to the States and joined the protests against the war, against Lyndon Johnson's government.
Yep.
Against what you might say was the state consensus on the subject of the Vietnam War. But now Kerry finds himself among the powerful. He's married to a billionaire heiress. And he finds dissent of the sort he offered half a lifetime ago a major problem that has to be hammered out of existence. This is where we are. Now, also where we are is on account of the internet. The internet that has been free, that is still free, and in what was surely an unintended consequence, the free internet that we have known enabled people to find the truth for themselves and share it. And that, as it turns out, is a problem that the self-proclaimed elites don't know how to deal with in any sophisticated, far less subtle fashion. Now, there have always been state secrets. As long as there have been nation states, there have been state secrets. Information that the ruling group deemed too sensitive or too troubling for general consumption by the likes of you and me. You go back to somebody like Machiavelli and the Prince. Machiavelli makes plain that morality is not necessary for the ruler, or therefore, by extension, is not necessary for the government, for the state. The Prince, the state, whatever, creates law. and creates morality and is above both. The point of Machiavelli in many respects was that the subjects, folk like you and me, must be controlled by morality. People like you and me must behave morally, because it's only when we're moral that we submit to obeying the law. And so there's a double standard within statecraft, that the people running the state don't have to be moral at all. In fact, quite the contrary.
That's a huge
We've had
point.
centuries of
Canadians are
failures.
very moral, very compliant.
Clever, educated, thoughtful people agonizing about how much power should be ceded by the people to the state in a contract, in return for safety, in return for peace. We've had centuries of clever people trying to work it out. You know, when it comes to the social contract, you've got the likes of Thomas Hobbes, John Locke, and Jean-Jacques Rousseau. You know, Hobbes said political order is possible only when human beings abandon their natural condition of judging and pursuing what seems best to each, and delegate judgment to someone else. And Hobbes said that without peace, humans live in continual fear and danger of violent death. And therefore what life they have is solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. So you've got thinkers working it out, contemplating what it is to be a state and govern a state. Until now, where we are now, when you have a powerful class of psychopathic parasites who honestly believe the law only applies to the pesky people. Only the little people have to obey. Only the little people have to abide by morality. The powerful consider themselves to be beyond the law. And this explains the millions of pages of legislation that they draft and pass, because the law is simple, based on variations on the theme of the Ten Commandments, really. But legislation is the workaround. The pages and pages are the way the powerful have found to get around the law and thereby do what they want. Now, that clip of Tucker Carlson talking about the doings and the thinkings of Mike Pompeo of the CIA, erstwhile director of the CIA. You know, he talks about, Tucker Carlson talks about how the files on the John F. Kennedy murder are still withheld from the people. They were withheld by Trump, withheld by Biden, even though the statute of limitations on them being withheld is passed.
There's no living person connected to the Kennedy assassination. It was a couple generations ago. There's no one person whose secrets are being protected. It's an institution, or maybe countries. There may have been countries involved too. I mean, I don't know the answer, but there's clearly something worth protecting.
And Tucker spoke there about having been in touch with someone who had seen the documents. And that person had intimated to Tucker that within them, you know, the reason for them being kept secret still was that there was something that was worth protecting. And so Carlson went on TV and said that the CIA was involved in the killing of John F. Kennedy, as he had been told by that person who had seen the documents. And then the next, I mean, that thing about, you know, sitting in his car and he gets the call from Pompeo's lawyer, you know, warning him.
He's threatening me.
Putting the frighteners on him. You know, that to reveal the contents of a document like that was a crime. And you know, as Tucker rightly says.
What about the actual crime, which is murdering a president? Like, you're covering up for that, Mike Pompeo.
And so Mike Pompeo pressed Trump to maintain the secret. And then Pompeo was caught plotting to murder Julian Assange, as Julian Assange has said in the past few days, having broken his silence, finally, after a dozen years in incarceration. You know, as Tucker said, federal employees are not allowed to just kill people they don't like. And yet it's on the record that Mike Pompeo colluded with others to do just that. And yet Mike Pompeo is still out there. He's tipped to be Trump's Secretary of Defense if Trump wins the next election.
It is now a matter of public record that under Pompeo's explicit direction, the CIA drew up plans to kidnap and to assassinate me within the Ecuadorian embassy in London, and authorized going after my European colleagues, subjecting us to theft, hacking attacks, and the planting of false information.
The law is in the way of these people, just as the First Amendment and the Constitution of the United States is in the way of these people. In truth, it always has been. But the flouting of it and their use of workarounds to avoid it has mostly been kept from our side. Up until recently, we weren't able to see the depths of what was going on. But here we are in this new era, this free internet that looks like receding into the past tense with every passing day, in which the ins and outs, the reality of statecraft have been revealed to more and more of us, the dirty dealing, the willful lying. All that used to happen in secret, in the shadows, is now routinely exposed on the internet. The game has changed, but the oligarchs and the powerful are still playing the same old game.
We've been changing the game.
As though they still have the ability to keep and conceal secrets. I think a lot of it is explained by a theory like betrayal blindness, in which a victim of abuse by a trusted other has so much time and effort invested in the relationship, not to mention trust invested, that to contemplate the reality of being abused and that they should do something about it is just too much to bear.
And that is the state of our people with politicians. The abuse of our political establishment. Our society is so invested in it and trusting of it that we find it as and I'm speaking for the masses, not for this community. You guys are like among the best educated about the reality that there is out there. But that spousal abuse relationship is a kind of a pretty accurate analogy to that. I'm going to take this just a couple minutes here to go back through some comments so they don't get too far away. I want to start with, where was it? Bear with me just a second. There it is. COVID warrior. Compliance equals sheep. That's one way to think about it, but I kind of like the way Neil thinks about it. And does start with compliance, but where does that compliance come from? We're good-natured people. We have giant hearts, and it does take a lot to trigger us. So we're kind of victims of our own moral quality. I hate to say it, but that's kind of where we're at. And I really like this, Carol. The CIA and FBI political parties in Canada, we've got a few in the same theme, but we have to be, some of us, willing to take great risk. And absolutely, Colleen, Julian has paid a huge price. And when I launched What's Up Canada, short little sidebar, I'd worked for a lot of organizations. I didn't want to go on camera. I didn't want to put my face to it. And then it was actually the arrest of Julian Assange that really kind of inspired me, because I understood then that the reason he was going to live was because enough people around the world knew his face, knew his name, knew the truth, and that was going to keep him alive. And it almost nearly didn't, with the CIA and FBI political parties taking liberties and showing themselves to be above the law. Mike Pompeo is still walking the streets, absolutely. and we are, trying to navigate our way through a society traumatized by our government. I've been talking with Michelle Smith over the last little bit. She's putting some stuff together. She feels compelled to come out and talk to everybody about some of the trauma and abuses and reality of some of what we got going on is all about. And somebody had mentioned there earlier that it would be a good idea for me to get Neil Oliver on a podcast. And I think I've got someday when I grow up, he's absolutely on the top of my wish lists to have on for a discussion. But I don't think they'll allow my channel to get big enough to get on his radar. Compliance comes from fear. Oftentimes, yes, it's a trauma reaction. Compliance is you want to stop a deer dead in its tracks, put a spotlight on him, right? So that's kind of a lot of that. But yeah, me just rambling there for a sec. Back to Neil for the last bit.
It's easier instead to get angry with anyone who tries to tell them their partner, in this case, the state, is abusing them. And this, I would say, this is why, even in the face of so much revealed, so much has been revealed, and so much more is revealed with every passing day, so many huge lies,
every day,
people still are too frightened of contemplating that new disturbing reality that they just watch someone like a John Kerry or Hillary Clinton and they let the lies slide by like water off a duck's back.
Like saluting Nazis in Parliament.
Julian Assange, someone like Tucker Carlson calls it out, calls the lying for what it is. It's still easier for too many people to blame the messengers instead. The problem, and it's a problem for all of us, one way or another.
I'm going to pull this comment up, Wendy. You're absolutely right. And that's why, I'm enjoying this clip. I wanted to share it with you guys. We might be on the moral high ground, but good men have to do bad things to keep us protected from those that are doing the kinds of things that they're doing to us now. What has historically brought down tyranny? The people. Only the people. Sooner or later, the people have to do it. Once the tyranny is entrenched, yeah, it takes the people. So thank you for that comment. We've got to get braver and get outside of, I'm not telling people to go and do immoral things, but you cannot let the immoral things slide. We have to find better ways of challenging them.
Until we find a solution. The problem is that all of that behaviour has previously been hidden from the people to a greater or lesser extent. The media has been in the pay of the state, so supposed leaks and scandals happened by design. I don't know, the Profumo affair or whatever, limited hangout. That much revelation comes with the consent, or used to come with the consent of the state, because it didn't make any difference to the bigger picture. But now the internet and
100% COVID warrior
of its potential in the form of WikiLeaks and Julian Assange was like X-ray specs, revealing all, exposing the reality of so-called statecraft.
Will it be a war or the Crusades? Civil War? Revolution? Renaissance? I'd pick Renaissance.
When the state is the creature not of any group with any sort of morality or restraint, but of oligarchs bent only on wealth, control, and ultimately power. Maybe a more sophisticated response will be conjured into being, maybe not, but there's no sign of it at the moment. We are in the grip of crude and blunt people.
We can't save everyone.
Blunt in their exercise of power, wholly lacking any kind of sophistication. So what we have, instead of thinking people like Hobbes and Locke and Rousseau, we have oligarchs, arrogant, but persuaded of their own right, more complete even than divine right, because at the peak of the ziggurat, we have oligarchs who consider themselves more than gods, whose only response to the creation, to the situation created by the internet, is that of someone who, having only a hammer, treats everything as a nail. They lack the wit or the sophistication to do anything else but try and hammer every nail flat in plain sight. So gone are the sophisticated, thoughtful people who considered issues at length. Those in power are not like that. They're not learned. I think their wealth and their inherited power persuade them they don't even need to be learned or sophisticated. Machiavelli said a leader had to have the nature of a fox and also of a lion. That he needed the cunning and foresight of the fox and the fierce strength of the lion. But more and more, the self-professed elites blunder around like bulls in a china shop. No foxes, no lions, just bulls. So that, you know, you have someone like Tim Walz saying...
There's no guarantee to free speech on misinformation or hate speech, and especially around our democracy.
There's no exception in the First Amendment to enable the criminalizing of so...
That guy to me is such a cartoon caricature. Even I could doodle him as a cartoonist, and my art skills are seriously rusty. Your comment, I wanted to address this, Colleen. Good one. You're absolutely correct. The world is becoming morally unglued, diabolically unhinged. Absolutely agree with the buckle up part, but I wonder, is it? I think it's always been morally unglued. They've just kept it under wraps for way too long. Absolutely, there's been small sects that have been diabolically unhinged since the beginning of our time. I think what we're seeing is a separation of that, and people are being known by their fruits, right? So 100% I choose Renaissance. Let's do it. We're working on it, right? Working on it. So carry on here.
So-called hate speech, for example, because James Madison and others understood that hate is subjective, that it's at the mercy of the powerful making judgments about what is hateful. But there you have it, a senior man running for vice president of the United States of America who doesn't even understand his own country's constitution. That's beyond frightening. It might even be ludicrous and laughable. So these people, whether they're dullards or just playing games, much too arrogant as well, even for their own good, who are determined that all they need to do, perhaps all they can do, is shut people up, make it illegal to disagree with the state. So we have censorship in all its forms when the truth is inconvenient to the powerful, up until the point we've reached most recently when characters like John Kerry are talking openly about freedom of speech as an obstacle to power, an obstacle to building consensus and the ability to govern, as Kerry describes it. And he's hardly alone. Hillary Clinton is to the fore, insisting that what she calls the narrative has to be consistent, which is the same as saying the powerful must eradicate all dissent, any voices that question their narrative. Far less openly challenges their narrative. It's all so shockingly unsophisticated apart from anything else. It's so clumsy and so blatant and so arrogant. Robert Burns said in a poem called To a Louse, the setup is that he's in church and there's a pretty woman sitting and there's a louse is on her hat. And everyone's looking at her and smiling, and she thinks they're smiling at her prettiness because she doesn't realise, you know, what it is that's making everybody smile. And he says, Robert Burns says in the poem, well, I'll translate it for those who aren't Scottish, that he wishes someone had the power to let us see ourselves as others see us. And I see the truth is that in their overweening self-importance and hubris, the powerful now don't see themselves as we do. They don't even realise that we see them, but we see them. And it's beginning to dawn on them, and it enrages them. But better than that, it frightens them into doing ever more ridiculous things. This is where we are now. We can see them. We can watch these clips and we can dissect these clips and we can see them. And it's their own nature that will be their undoing.
Couldn't agree with him more, right? The swamp zombies, the masks are off. Oh, sorry, guys. The masks are off on the swamp zombies, and we're onto them, and we are. They don't see themselves, and it's absolutely their undoing, right? So we went quite a bit longer than I was going to, but I'll save a couple of these other last ones that I had queued up for tomorrow. I'm not going to go that far, that long, but I am going to let you guys know. Anybody knows Brett Hawes? He'll be joining us not this coming Monday, but the Monday after. And I've been getting to know Brett a little bit over the last couple of days. And that is one that you guys, everybody is really going to want to tune in for. And I'll add his Substack link into my Substack for everybody that's curious and wants to get to know Brett a little bit. He's doing some amazing work. He's done a lot of amazing work over the last number of years, mostly behind the scenes. But I think you guys are really going to you're gonna love Brett. You're really gonna love Brett. So that's going to be a wrap for tonight, guys. You know, same time, same place tomorrow, 7 o'clock Eastern. Thank you for bearing with the censorship and the tech issues. I'm going to have to, I guess, maybe look into maybe a Starlink type of thing, perhaps, some point down the road here, because they are definitely making it difficult. And this program used to reach 1 million people a month, and they've definitely kicked the shit out of that. But we keep coming back like whack-a-moles, and I'm grateful for all of you guys and everything that you do. We're going to be talking a lot more about Bill C-293 and Bill C-63. These are some of the other opportunities in the Overton window right now that we can address and take an organized stance on. There is these are kind of the initiatives that are growing with a grassroots swell. So those are the ones that I want to keep reminding people of. This is some fights that are growing. Support if you have anything that I need to know. I'm working on getting Dr. Trotsy back on. I was in his hearing today with Michael Alexander at the Supreme Court for his fight for doctors in Canada. And got a chance to message with them briefly afterwards, and they were very pleased with how it went. I was looking for more definition of verdict, but we'll get that from the horse's mouth real soon. So we'll have Dr. Trotsy on. So this is how you can get a hold of me. Support your local non-government taxpayer-funded extorted media. Fight for the guys that, or support the guys that fight for you the hardest out there. You know who they are, the ones you trust to give it to you daily, to go into the trenches. So we'll be introducing you to more folks again here in the coming days. Sorry, I just saw a comment here. Yeah, Facebook, it lets me stream there, but it doesn't let it go anywhere from there. So kind of the old timers that kind of get know that we're here, and so that's why I encourage people to get plugged in on whatsupcanada.org and Substack. That's pretty much so. Rumble isn't bad, but and Substack, and my personal home headquarters at whatsupcanada.org is the best. So yeah, I think that's everything and more. Definitely got a bonus round tonight. So yeah, Sign you out. We'll see you tomorrow.